All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Spend all your time waiting for that second chance, for a break that would make it okay. There's always some reason to feel not good enough, and it's hard at the end of the day. I need some distraction. Oh, beautiful release. Memories seep through my veins. Let me be empty. Oh, and weightless, and maybe I'll find some peace tonight. In the arms of the angel, fly away from here, from this dark, cold hotel room, and the endlessness that you fear. You are pulled from the wreckage of your silence.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, Simul Radio, and Simul TV. Now, if you'd like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And to find out about the programming we have available for you, 7/24/365 on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. And for the programming on the X Zone TV channel, visit www.simultv.com, and in the search engine on the top of their main page, just type in X Zone. We came in using this song, In the Arms of an Angel by Sarah McLachlan, because we're going to be talking about angels this hour. My guest is Karen Forrest. She's an angel lady, and she is the Canadian best-selling author of Angels of the Maritimes, Canadian Angels, Angels of the Maritimes Volume 2, and most recently her autobiography, Angel Lady of the Maritimes. Karen works as an angel therapy practitioner, teaches various spiritual workshops, offers private angel readings, does house cleanings, clearings I should say, private mentorship, and is a motivational speaker. As an expert in angel communication, Karen has appeared on Breakfast Television, Supernatural Investigation, and Live at 5, guest spoken on various international radio shows, and quoted in newspapers internationally. Achieving a Bachelor in Nursing, Karen served 17 years in the Canadian Armed Forces, retiring as a captain, mental health nursing officer. Karen can be reached through her website, KarenForrest.com. That's KarenForrest. And Karen, welcome back to the X Zone, and congratulations on your new book.
Thanks very much.
So let me see here. What have you been up to since you and I last talked?
Basically trying to survive winter. Not my favorite season. I'm a little tired of the snow.
Yeah, you've been getting it pretty heavy over
there. I've been busy with sessions.
Yeah, you've been really getting it heavy down in the Maritimes this year.
Yeah, more snow than normal, so I'm a little tired. We had more snow last night, the 1st of March.
Wow.
I'm really, I'm ready for spring right about now.
And how did you, for the listeners who haven't heard you before here on the X Zone, tell us how you got involved with angel work.
Sure, yeah. Like growing up, I was raised as a Catholic, and I've always had a strong sense of faith. I've always believed in God and angels. but I wasn't doing the work that I'm doing now, and I certainly wasn't seeing angels or dead people as a child. But I started to take extensive spiritual training in my late 30s, just before I retired from the military. I wanted to work a little bit more on the spiritual end because I was already working as a counselor. So I took extensive spiritual training, including with Doreen Virtue, James Van Prague, and other people, to learn about how to communicate with angels and your loved ones in heaven.
And how do you communicate with your loved ones in heaven?
The main way is just by intent, is by holding the intent. I'd like to communicate with you or connect with you. So it's just, honestly, it's just thinking about them, and you have an connection with them because they're always with you. But what I tell people is there's 4 main ways they can communicate with you, whether you see them or hear them, or have a sense of knowingness, or feel them. So there's 4 main ways that they are going to communicate with you, just like angels. Both your angels and your loved ones in heaven will communicate with you in the same style.
So which, in your opinion, is the most common way to communicate with angels?
Most common way is actually feeling their presence. So people often say, I felt like someone was touching my shoulder, and then I thought of my angel, or I thought of God, or I thought of my mom passed on. And the reason you're thinking about them is because they're with you. So you might feel them touching you on your shoulder. You might feel like warmth around you, like you're being hugged, or you feel some love around you suddenly. So you feel their presence. And that's the most common way that people are going to receive it. So it's not like a lot of people think you're going to have to see them, which is a clairvoyant ability. Clairvoyant means you see things. And that's not the most common way. That's actually a harder way to communicate, other than in your dream state. That can be a little more common in your dream state. When you dream of them and you have a visitation when you're asleep, that is a clairvoyant ability to be able to do that. And they come through to you more often when you're sleeping rather than when you're awake, because your mind is more relaxed. You're not being distracted with everyday life or getting into your head too much. Your mind's more relaxed. You have a visitation at night, and that's a clairvoyant ability.
But if they come to you at night, how does the person not know that what they're experiencing is just a dream and that there is no connection with the other side?
That's up to them to decide. The way people describe it to me is that they'll say the words, I know it wasn't a dream because it was too real. It was like and they'll use the word visitation frequently, but they'll say it was real. It was real. I know I might have been asleep or just waking up or just falling asleep, but it was too real and too clear to have been what they would call a dream. So that's how they word it with me.
So basically, it depends on what the person really wants, whether it's a dream or it's a communication.
Yeah, they can. I tell people I don't care what words you use. You can call it a dream, you can call it a visitation, but if it made you feel good, that's what's important, right? And whether you believe it or not, just as long as you felt good, that's what matters to me.
I understand that, but how do we draw the line between fact and fiction? Because if people are saying that they're having an angelic experience and it's just a dream, isn't that a little deceiving to them by allowing them to think that what they had was an angelic or a communication with a deceased person when it was just a dream?
I don't think it's deceiving, but I do differentiate between the two, and as I said, really the difference is it would be far more real.
Okay.
Far more real than what a dream would be. That's the best way I can describe it.
Why is it that we can't look at, or why isn't there a daytime communication? Why does it have to be at night or when the person's asleep in order to be real?
Sure. There is daytime communication. That's where people often feel the presence of someone. But the reason it's more likely to happen at night is because during the day we're busy. Right, we're getting distracted. We're going about our daily lives. We're too much into our own head, too much into our thoughts. So our mind isn't relaxed enough to just sit there quietly and receive a message from them. If we just sat there quietly and really held intent, I would like to connect with you and practice that and worked with it, we would receive messages. And sometimes we do in other ways. So, for example, with clairvoyant, where at night you're going to be use the word dream, but I call it a visitation. My clients will call it a visitation or say it's more real than a dream. But during the day, a clairvoyant example would be that maybe if you're seeing angels, you suddenly see some sparkling lights that other people are not seeing, which is common for me. I tend to see angels as colored lights. And I'll see that during the day, but other people will describe that to me too, and then worry that there's something wrong with their vision. Then they go get it checked out and realize, no, there's doctor saying nothing wrong with their vision, and they have no reason, can't explain why they're seeing colored dots of light like I do, when really what they're seeing is angels.
So the colored flashes that people sometimes see during the daytime are angels.
Are angels, that's right.
Now, where do angels come from?
Where do they head? I've never thought about where do they come from. I mean, to me, they're from God, right? They're messengers of God. But when you look at that, that is a divine source. Mm-hmm. So where do they come from? Yeah. I couldn't really tell you where they come from. I think of it as another reality myself, but I couldn't really tell you.
They've never told you?
I do see them. I've never asked them. I never thought to ask them, where do you come from? I just get so excited when I see them. I didn't really think to ask them, where do you come from? Because that to me, it's hard to, like, when you ask them something like that, where do you, like, even when I'm asking them right now, where do you come from? They're like, well, we don't come from anywhere. We're right here where you are. Well, I'm like, well, that's not a real helpful explanation. That doesn't help me any.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so stand by. We've got to take our first break. X-Zone Nation, Karen Forrest is our guest. www.karenforrest.com. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
There's always some reason to feel not good enough, and it's hard at the end of the day. I need some distraction. Oh, beautiful release.
I need a sign to let me know you're here. All of these lines are being crossed over the atmosphere. I need to know that things are gonna look up, 'cause I feel us drowning in a sea spilled from a cup. And there is no place safe and no safe place to put my head when you can feel the world shake from the words that I said. And I call it angels.
X-Zone Nation, Karen Forrest is our special guest this hour. www.karenforrest.com. What I was trying to get at, Karen, where do they originate from? Where were they born? Where do they go when they're not here on Earth?
Yeah, good question. I can't answer where they originate from. I can't. When I try to ask questions like that, both with angels and also with our deceased relatives in heaven, when I speak with them, they don't say this condescendingly to me, but they will say it's hard to understand these concepts because they're not concepts from Earth, right? It's like when I try to understand time and realms and realities and galaxies and all this, and my brain cannot wrap itself around it. So it's not that they're trying to not tell me. Mm-hmm. I just don't have the words or the experiences here on Earth to be able to explain it, or for them to try to explain it to me. But I do often ask, including our relatives in heaven. I ask them things, and they laugh at me. They're like, "You'll understand when you get here. We don't have the words for it that you would understand." And again, they're not trying to be condescending. I just honestly don't understand. So I focus on what I can understand instead of ask them other questions that try to make some sense out of things here.
But wouldn't it be nice to know these answers?
I understand a lot of people would love to know those answers. For me, no. If it's just things I can't just understand the concept of, I focus on something else. So when I ask them things like, "Where do you come from?" Well, then I'll get things like, "Well, we come from love." I'm like, well, okay, whatever, angels. But I really would rather a different answer than, you come from love, right?
Well, now I know why they don't communicate with me, because I would ask them too many questions, I guess.
Yeah, I ask questions. I just don't always understand the answers. So it's okay. But other things that I do ask them, and I do get some answers that do make sense to me as a human with the words that I use here on Earth. Yeah, but it's hard to understand when you're coming from a completely different, what I call realm or reality, or I don't know. It's hard to describe the words for that as to where what it's like.
But if it's hard for them to communicate the simple questions, how is it easy for them to communicate the complicated questions?
Because to me, the complicated question is where do you originate from? Where the complicated question is, what do I need to do today to honor my life path? Or look, I'm really sick right now. What do I need to do to help myself feel better? Or I'm palliative right now. What do I need to do to get ready to cross over, or whatever? Those questions are where humans might call them difficult questions. Those are not for me when I work in counseling and communicate with angels on every day level, asking those type of questions.
So they'll tell us how we can prepare ourselves to cross over, but they can't tell us where they're from. That perplexes
Not words
me.
that I understand. When I ask them right now, they're saying we come from love. I'm like, yeah, well, I don't like that answer, angels. So there you go.
Is there a difference in how angels talk compared to our deceased relatives?
Yes, it is. Yeah. When I talk to angels, there's no judgment in any of the words at all, but there will be when I talk to a human being, because when I use the term angel, that's pure love and pure light. It's a divine source. We're relatives, we're human beings here on Earth. So, for example, if I ask, like I get commonly questions, for example, is this guy a good guy for me to date? And an angel will simply say yes or no. It's just a yes-no answer. Yes, this is, or no. But if I ask your mom, who's passed on, and she doesn't like the guy, she's going to say, no, the guy's a jerk. You deserve better than that, and I don't like him, and give me a bunch of reasons why. So the wording will be different. There's more judgment in the humans, which can be a little more entertaining for me when I speak to them. Your loved ones in heaven, they're more opinionated. Where the angels, there's no judgment in the words.
If we have free will, why would the angels want to interfere by influencing our own free will? If you, the example you gave about the person wanting to know if the other person will love them or whatever, why would they interfere if we have free will?
I don't see it as interfering. They just answer a question, and as I've learned from my clients, they'll decide what they want to do with the information. Right? So they're saying, here's a simple question. Is this a healthy relationship or good relationship? Yes or no? And so it's not about interference. It's just here's an answer to your question for what's best for you in your life at this point in time, because we've asked for some guidance. Now, a lot of times my clients will say, all right, I got the guidance, but I'm not going to listen to it. That's up to you. That's up to them, right? So I don't see it as interfering, but I definitely see it as guidance versus interference.
But why would a person have to ask an angel if a relationship is good for them or not? Can't they figure that out themselves?
You would think so.
Yeah.
I certainly tend to think so. But a lot of times when people, I've learned just from like 20 plus years of being a counselor, is that when you're in the midst of something, it's sometimes hard to see the answer. When you're in the midst of something, which I only understand from years of counseling experience. So, your friend might think it's obvious. No, this isn't a good guy for you. What are you thinking? And you're sitting there going, I don't know, I can't think right now. I find this really hard to see the answer. So that's when people will come to me and ask for angelic guidance, saying, what do the angels have to say? Because they want a pure form of guidance rather than guidance from a human being that's going to come from their own judgments or fears.
Would you say that people who go to angelic communicators like yourself are basically weak and they don't have the ability to make decisions on their own?
No, I definitely don't say that. I actually applaud them for having the guts to ask some really tough questions sometimes, because at least they're asking the question. And most of the time, almost like I'd say 99% of the time, my clients, they know the answer. They just don't need to flat out hear it. They know in their gut. It's rare that I surprise anyone with an answer. They know it in their own gut instinct, what's best for them or what they need to do. But sometimes it's more than just, is this a good guy? It's like, okay, maybe the answer is no, but how do I get out of this relationship? Or how do I safely get out of this relationship? And that's where they need some guidance as a counselor.
So are you more of a counselor than angel reader?
I'm both. I'm definitely a counselor because of my counseling background. That's where I am different than a typical angel reader, for sure, because I bring far more counseling skills into it. So an angel reader might say, nope, this guy's not good for you. I'm like, yeah, well, we need a little bit more than that. Thanks very much. But that's because I have the counseling background, and angels will draw on that with me to say, Karen, you know what to say in this type of thing, or this is what you need to explore, and here's some very specific guidance. So I take it to a deeper level than a typical angel reader would do because of my counseling background. My focus is counseling and healing in my sessions, where a typical angel reader, that would not be. But that's because they don't have the counseling experience I have and the educational background I have as a counselor. So my work is different in that way, for sure.
But isn't that a conflict of interest? Because here you are a counselor, and you're getting advice from angels to give to your clients. And is there any way that subconsciously, even though the angelic advice is one thing, your experience as a counselor is another, and you kind of ignore what the angels say and give them your advice based on your counseling experience?
It could be if I wasn't working at a professional level. Sure, it could. I really hold myself to high standards, but that's me holding myself to that. What I have learned from my experience of doing angel readings is often what the angels say will surprise me, because I come from a humanist and I don't know the whole story.
Right.
So when they say one thing, I make it clear this is what the angels are saying. But the angels will guide me what to say and how to say it, too. But there's sometimes I'll say to people, now you're going to get my 2 cents worth as Karen Forrest. But most of my focus is what the angels say, because that's what people want in the session. Now, when conflict of interest for me, no, because I work as a spiritual counselor. If I said, like worked as when I used to work as a mental health nurse, and I was a nurse, a registered nurse, I couldn't bring in the equation of angels into that.
Right.
That's why I quit nursing and just now call myself a vague spiritual counselor, because there would have been a conflict of interest. You can't really sit there and talk about angels and dead people in quite those terms. When I worked as a mental health nurse, I couldn't do that.
Am I to understand that you left the nursing profession to follow a full-time profession as an angel reader?
That's exactly what I did. I quit nursing.
Wow.
Yeah, I quit nursing. Yeah, but by divine guidance, which I wasn't only thrilled with at first, because I do have a Bachelor of Nursing with advanced diploma in psychiatric nursing and years of experience as a mental health nurse. But there came a point, angels, because I asked for guidance. What do I need to do to honor my life path?
Sure.
And I've always been wanting to honor my life path, and it does. It changes and meanders throughout time. And there's a point they said, okay, you've got the nursing experience, you've got the mental health experience. Now you need to work as a spiritual counselor full time.
All right, stand by, Karen. We've got to take our commercial break. And Exo Nation, Karen Forrest is our guest this hour. www.karenforrest.com, and Forrest is Forrest. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, and check out all the great programming we have available for you, 7/24/365, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Between the perfect world and the bottom
And welcome back. Karen Forrest is our special guest this hour. We're talking about angels. Her website is karenforrest.com. What role do the angels play when it comes to you communicating with those who are deceased?
For me, the angels and God oversee that aspect. When I communicate with a deceased person, that's a different vibration, a little bit of a lower vibration. Still high, though. Our relatives are beautiful in heaven. But when I communicate with them, I'm always doing everything I can to keep the pureness of the session and keep the session protected. So the angels and God will oversee that aspect and protect the session. And I also ask the angels to help the deceased person communicate with me as clearly as possible.
Now, what happens if a person is of a religious philosophy where they don't believe in angels, they don't believe in God, but they want to communicate with someone on the other side? How does that work?
No, definitely. I just need them to be tolerant of my beliefs, because that does happen. Some of my clients are like, I don't believe in angels of God. I'm like, that's fine. Just understand that I do have a divine source overseeing this, and then we'll just focus on communicating on your loved one in heaven and communicating with them. So that does happen.
What happens if the deceased person is in hell?
In a lower vibrational level, as a professional medium, I have a cutoff point. If a dead person's vibrations are too low, they cannot communicate with me directly, because I have protection on who I communicate with. It's extremely rare, right? Out of the hundreds of thousands of dead people I've spoken to, I can only think of 3 examples that's happened. And what has happened is that I'd call for the person, and the angels will come to me and say, look, that person is at a lower vibrational level, or hell, and do you want me to communicate with them? And I'm like, no, I don't. Keep them away from me. So it's rare, but it can happen. But I have protection so that they cannot communicate with me directly.
What happens if a person has been reincarnated?
Yeah, I still communicate with that aspect of their soul that my client would know. Because no doubt most of them have reincarnated. So if, say, I'm speaking to your mom who might have passed away 30 years ago. There's a good chance she's probably reincarnated by now. But I'm speaking to that aspect and connecting with that aspect of her soul that my client knew, and that's who I will communicate with, even though by now they probably have started a whole other new life here on Earth.
So the aspect of the soul that you communicate with, how do you explain that? That's got me a little confused, because I thought the soul went with the person when they were reincarnated as well.
They are, and that's why the angels have taught me what words to use, because I had to ask them, and dead people like, I don't get this. Dead people, you got to try to help me understand this or explain it in human terms. So what they said is they use the words aspect of the soul, because your soul is what I call you, but you're so many parts to you, right? That's where we have the different realms. I'm here on Earth, but I'm sure some part of my soul is in heaven, some part is reincarnated, and then there's probably another in the future, and who knows what that I can't even understand, but it's still me and my soul. So that's why I just, for lack of better words, and try to understand, I use the words, that aspect of your soul that you knew when that person was alive, because there's only one part of the soul. There's so many parts to us.
If life is like that, you've talked to us before about where we never die, we just continue on this journey that we're on. Why do we fear death so much then?
Oh, that's our culture. That's our culture. It's and not everyone fears death, but it is common in our culture. And one of the biggest reasons that I've seen for that is it's more religious based, where we're trained in some religions that you're going to be judged, and people are really afraid that they're going to go to some version of hell, and they don't want to. They don't want their soul to go to hell. So we fear death because we're like, oh my God, I'm going to go to hell, and now I'm going to be damned forever and everything else. Like it's a fear of what's going to happen afterwards, which is very unfortunate, because that doesn't happen.
Fear of the unknown.
That's right. Yeah. Well, no. Fear of what they think they know it. They think, I'm definitely going to be judged, and that's any dead person I've ever asked. They've never told me of being judged at all by any divine source. It's just what we're trained to think.
What do the dead say happens at the time of death?
Yeah, what they commonly say is that the moment that they die, they refer to it as an escort that takes them to heaven, which is normally one of their relatives who have already passed on that they're familiar with, and then they'll talk about angels taking them to heaven or some divine being. So sometimes people say, you know, Mother Mary greeted me and my sister greeted me, and then they're the ones that took me into heaven, and then from there that's where I met everybody else.
Okay, you made a reference to Mother Mary, and I believe that's in Catholicism. But a Christian has no relationship with Mother Mary. So what would happen in that case?
It's really up to the soul, because my experience when I speak to dead people as to who greets them when they cross over, they have sometimes been surprised by who greets them, including by a divine source. They'll say, "Oh, it was an angel, and I've never believed in angels," or "It was Mother Mary, and I'm not Catholic." Well, Mother Mary has nothing to do with being Catholic. I know Catholics will try to claim that, but she's just a divine source, right? So it's always interesting how that will play through when the deceased will talk to me about who has greeted them.
Interesting. What about
it is. It's actually very surprising. Yeah.
What about St. Peter at the Golden Gate, the Book of Life, and so on? Is that real, or is that just made up?
No one's ever talked about St. Peter specifically. No one's talked about a gate. They will use that's not a word I've ever heard of, a gate or waiting in line. There's no lineups. No one's ever talked about a gate. They will talk about lights, golden lights, feeling of peace, feeling of warmth. But no one's ever used the word gate to me before in a vision, or showed me that even visually, that they're greeted at a gate. So I haven't seen that. They haven't really talked about books, or someone looked them up in the book to see where they belong.
Yeah.
They've never used those words with me, from my experience when I ask them.
Are your clients mostly women or mostly men, or an even mix?
No, they're mainly women, but what happens is the women come in with a list of the men's questions. So, a woman will come in and say, "Here's my questions, and here's my husband's questions." I'm like, "Well, why doesn't your husband just come in and get his own session?" And they're like, "Well, he doesn't believe in this, but he heard I was coming to see you, so here's his questions." I'm like, "All right, fine, we'll answer his questions first and get on to yours." So the person who sees me, most of the time it's woman. The one who asks the questions, it's both.
How about children? Do you talk to children who are on the other side?
Yeah, sure I do. That's hard emotionally for me as a therapist when I'm working with a parent who's lost a young child. But it happens, and absolutely I communicate with the child in heaven. But I do find that emotional personally when I have to do that.
I would imagine that many of these sessions are very draining on you personally. And how do you cope with the stress and the fatigue that you must carry because of the communications?
It can be draining. Emotionally, it can be very draining and exhausting. I cope with it in many different ways, including spiritual practices like meditation or clearing my energy, but then simple things like I exercise, usually 5 days a week. I go for walks. I make sure I sleep well at night. I eat relatively healthy, other than when I'm eating chips. So it's taking care of myself. I'm very particular about taking care of myself at all levels, physically, mentally, and emotionally, in order to do well with the work that I do.
How about when you're doing your sessions, have you ever had a negative entity try to come into the picture, and how do you protect yourself and the person on the other side from negativity?
Yeah. I haven't had that, but that's because I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. I protect my sessions, and it's all by intent. It's easy. I just say, "Look, God, protect the session." So even tonight for the show, I already asked God before I got on air, saying, "You need to protect the line, you need to protect us," and the words that come through. So I do have divine protection on it, so that I'm not having to worry about a negative entity coming through. And then it's intent. I would never just say something flaky like, "Does anyone out there who wants to speak can come through?" Because if you ever hear some medium say that, you want to run away real quick because they just invited in negative entities. So I'm very specific with my intent as to who I communicate with, in order to not have concerns with the negative entity coming through, because it does exist.
All right, you and I have to take our final break. Please stand by, Karen, at Exo Nation, if you'd like to contact our guest this hour. Her name is Karen Forrest. And that's Karen, capital Forrest. Her website is KarenForrest.com. And Karen and I will be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
Troubled times. Well, it's a miracle in itself. And we know too well what that's about. Still, we made it through. Only God knows how. We must have had a little help. Must have been wild angels watching over you. There'll be no strings to bind your hands, not if my love can bind your heart. There's no need to take a stand, for it was I who chose to start. I see no need to take me home. I'm old enough to face the dawn. Just call me angel of the morning, angel. Just touch my cheek before you leave me, baby. Just call me angel.
And welcome back. Speaking about angels, our guest this hour is the Angel Lady. And I'm talking about Karen Forrest. Her website is KarenForrest.com. Karen, why do so many children have angels with them, sea angels and guardian angels?
Yeah, I get that quite a bit. It's surprising, but I started to realize this because, especially younger children, they're more intuitive because it hasn't been beaten out of them yet, right? Like they haven't been told, oh, you know, you can't see things, or don't talk to angels, or don't do that, or stop talking to your imaginary friend. So they're far more relaxed and open to these experiences than what we are as adults. Plus, as adults, we tend to just get so busy with life and mundane tasks and work and everything we've got to do that we don't always take time to relax our minds to receive any messages or notice them as easily.
What about children who see black or gray shadows? What do you perceive those shadows as? Are they negative spirits? Are they negative ghosts or demons?
Yep, yeah. If they see gray or black, anything that's not has color in it. So if it's white or colorful or bright colors, that's going to be something that's good. Including your relatives in heaven, you can sometimes see them like that. But if you're seeing gray or black shadows, often that's how they use the words. Kids will say, "I'm seeing, a gray shadow or a black shadow." Yeah. That's a lower energy, and that's not good when children are seeing that.
So, what should a parent do if a child comes and starts talking about these shadows that they see, or these strange dreams that they have with shadows in them? What should the parents do?
Yeah, there's a few things. One, I often recommend, first of all, get a house clearing, which is what I do professionally. Even if you just simply ask a divine source to remove any negative energy or entities out of your house. The other thing, I like to empower children, so I'll teach them to say things like ask, depending on the words, I have to ask the parents what words they like to use, but for example, say, ask angels to remove that gray or black shadow from you. All right. So I would never teach a child, tell that gray or black shadow to go away, because they won't listen to you necessarily. So I'll say, you go to the angels, you go to God, or wherever you like to talk to, and say, you please remove that gray or black shadows. That way it empowers the child to take control in that way.
Interesting. How can a person better acquaint themselves, not only with their angels, but how can they better prepare for a communication with someone on the other side, because I'm sure that when people have the communications without the proper preparation, it can be quite unnerving for them.
It is unnerving. I get that a lot. People say to me, I want to see angels, and then they see one, and then they get freaked out and tell it to go away, and they're like, oh, my God, I actually saw one. I'm like, well, you asked for that. But they get unnerved at first if they're not used to it. So the first thing I tell people, just be open to the idea of receiving messages from whether it be angels or your loved ones in heaven. Just be open to the idea. Also ask them to give you some signs, but don't micromanage what those signs are. Don't tell them what the sign needs to be because you limit them. Just say, look, my mom in heaven or my sister in heaven or angels, I would love to receive a sign, and just help me be open to receiving it and noticing it. So start with very basic intents like that. That's a big help right there. Then I tell people, go hang out with them. You got to get used to their energy and presence. So if you want to know what it's like to be around your sister who's passed on, well, sit down with your sister who's passed on for a minute and say, hey, help me understand what it's like to feel you around me, or how do I see you, or how do I know you're around me? And just be quiet for about 30 seconds or so. You'll feel their presence or notice or hear something, and then you keep practicing that. So you got to ask them to sit with them and practice that so you're used to their energy.
What do members of the clergy think about people who have the gift of communicating with angels? Do they take angel communicators as serious, or how to, kind of touchy, I would imagine?
My experience so far, it's been very varied. Rob, it really has. I remember when I was first in the military doing this training, and I told the Padres, and they said, well, you can't talk to angels. I'm like, well, yes, I can, and you won't stop me. But they thought I was walking on their turf, and I'm like, screw you, I'm going to talk to whoever I want to. And then I've had other Padres who are my clients and are still trying to deepen their connection with angels and God themselves. So they come to me for private sessions to work on deepening their own personal connection. And then I have others that they're like, we're okay with angels or God or divine source, but don't talk to dead people. So it's very varied, my experience. And even within one religion, I can say, some say they're Catholic, and it's very varied within each person.
I guess it would be very unnerving to actually communicate with someone that you know is dead if you weren't ready for it.
If you weren't ready for it, and it is unnerving, and you won't get messages because you'll block it because you don't want it. So it would be unnerving, yes. And that's where I help people just get a little more comfortable with the thought and the idea, if they want it. Now, if they don't want it, it's like, then don't do it.
Yeah.
It's okay. But those who are interested, they come to me to learn that. That's why I teach workshops about that.
What, does meditation help?
Yes, absolutely, it helps. Yeah, it helps to quiet your mind to receive messages.
And when somebody contacts you through your website for an angel reading, how long does it take?
They can get in within a week.
Wow,
to
that's
see me.
pretty
I do
good.
this work full time. It doesn't take long, yeah. I told God when I started this work, I said, I'm not having this ridiculous wait list of a year because I have a life, right? I'm not booking my life a year out. If people want to see me when I do this work, they have to be able to get in within a month. Now, typically a week is all you have to wait. It doesn't take that long to see me.
Is there any special training that an angel communicator has to undergo? For example, do you give courses on how to become an angel communicator?
I do private mentorship for people, and then I also teach workshops for people to learn to do this for themselves and get their own messages. So I do both. So is there a specific course? Not necessarily, because the terms with each person can be very different and very vague. When I use the term Angel Therapy Practitioner, that I am, that is a registered trademark that Doreen Virtue has. That had a very specific 1-week-long course that I took with her, a 7 days intensive course I took with her to say, I am an Angel Therapy Practitioner. But someone can just call themselves an angel reader, and that can be almost anything in the way of education. That's why I really tell people, find out a little bit, do they have any professional training, who you're seeing. And it needs to be more than that you're supposedly gifted, because we're all gifted. We can all get messages. It's not that I'm so special.
Right.
But I have been divinely guided to do this work, and I do have an education behind it, too.
So what is the difference between the Angel Communicator and the course certification that you received from Doreen Virtue?
I can use both terms myself. I do say I'm an angel communicator because I talk to angels. But just the Angel Therapy Practitioner is a very specific trademarked course with Doreen Virtue. So there's not necessarily a difference. It's just Angel Therapy Practitioner is a very specific type of training.
So it's just a trademark name?
It is a trademark name. That's all it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do you see angel practitioners in the future?
Oh, I see so many of them. It's wonderful. People are really becoming far more aware and wanting to express more of the spiritual side of themselves, not just the physical and emotional side. I mean, the last 20 years we've been struggling with trying to express ourselves more emotionally. I think we're getting better at that. Now let's also move into the spiritual part. So it's very exciting to see that people are trying to become more aware and include that as part of their everyday life.
What are your final thoughts for the Exo Nation tonight?
What I really encourage people is learn to develop their own personal connection with the divine source, and there's a million ways to do it. But just pick one way and start until you find a way that works for you. And then ask whatever divine being you like to speak to help you find the right teacher or practice that works for you, because there's so many different ways, and it's not that one way is better than the other. It's finding the way that works for you and that serves you and you like.
Karen, as always, time goes by so fast when you're with us. I wish you continued success, but tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and what you do.
Yeah, they can call me in North America, 1-877-404-3103. Email Karen at KarenForrest.com or Twitter at KarenForrest.
Karen, take care of yourself. Thank you so much. And if you'd like some more snow, I'll see what I can do in sending you some down.
Yeah, thanks very much, Rob.
Take care, Karen.
Hey, bye.
Bye-bye now. All right, Exo Nation, our guest this hour has been Karen Forrest. And once again, her website is www.karenforrest.com. And if you'd like to contact her, she has a toll-free number, North America, 1-877-404-3130. I'll be back on the other side of this news break at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
There's no need to take a stand, for it was I who chose to start.